Hey, what's going on, everybody? BDL44 coming at you with another video. All right, so the Lakers got the victory in Golden State, 109-106, and I just watched some of the most refreshing basketball in a Laker uniform that I've seen in a long time. Man. Refreshing in the sense that even though we didn't have the greatest shooting night from AD, Brown wasn't on the floor. We still saw a full team of talented people run up and down the floor in solid size matchups, decent rotations, and ultimately just rebound the ball at a high level. 52 boards for our squad. I could not be more happy. I'm sitting here with a relief in my voice because it almost brings tears to my eyes. See no small ball, to see the type of defensive intensity that was brought to the floor, the aggressiveness, and what really sits well with me right now is just how well the old guys look playing next to the new guys. Vanderbilt and Austin, Austin Reeves had a synergy out there that was evident in a couple plays. Uh, D'Angelo Russell seemed to be playing well off of some of our guys out there playing defense, getting involved. DS and D'Angelo Russell, I like them playing off one another a lot in that backcourt. That's just so much offense. And Dennis Schroeder is such a more effective basketball player when you have other players on the floor next to him that can really attract attention. Uh, man, D'Angelo Russell came back. I think he had about 15 points, several assists, 5 boards or something like that. Just a real solid, comfortable. You know, didn't try to force anything. Let the game come to him. Did all the intangible things. Shot a nice percentage. Uh, and then Dennis Schroeder just being aggressive as heck. I mean, getting to the line repeatedly. He was a team high guy with I think 26 points. So I just really like the aggression there. Rui Hachimura, he had a nice game tonight. Uh, we love seeing the rebounding out there and the scoring. And I just thought that we did a good job of balancing out the minutes pretty well. And I know we don't like minutes mentality. We talk about that kind of thing. But just given the circumstances, you want to see everybody. And even though there were some guys who didn't get a chance to play, but that's just it's just natural. But I thought Darvin Ham did a really good job of making sure we saw a good portion, a good taste of everybody that we needed to see tonight. So, really take my hat off to Jordan Poole, even though those guys shot poorly from behind the arc, and he was no exception. Ultimately, he still did some really good things for his team, scoring the ball. Dante DiVincenzo stood out for me tonight. Ty Jerome was 5 of 7 off the bench. I thought he should have probably shot more for their team. Jonathan Kuminga and Draymond Green had a really big game. I thought, I don't know if it showed up in the stats, but he was everywhere all the time, drawing fouls, grabbing boards, pushing people around, screaming in AD's face, jokingly, of course, but in the spirit of competition. I just really enjoyed this matchup tonight. Klay Thompson, though, boy, did Klay shoot them out of the game? It was anemic tonight, and it's one of those things where they live and die with the type of shooting that they have. Obviously, they're the Golden State Warriors, the 3-point pinnacle, so they're gonna shoot as they see fit, and they're gonna live and die with the three just like everybody else. And tonight, they definitely did not survive. I think they attempted like 43 of them as a squad, maybe hit about 8 of them or something like that. It was really obscene type of stuff, shooting under 30%. We didn't shoot that much better, but we shot half of their attempts and made up the difference in better possessions. So, I mean, I was super happy, man, watching our guys just play. Wenyen Gabriel and Vanderbilt, seeing them down there together was absolutely astonishingly awesome. Just to see how they both offensive rebound. Got to give Troy Brown the credit. He was the game high rebounder guy with 3 offensive rebounds, or at least for our team. I'm not sure what Golden State had over there on that with that stat, but we just really crashed the glass very well. 10 offensive rebounds as a squad, 52 in a total. As I said, I think the Warriors were just shy of 50. I think they had like 48 or something like that. Not really certain, but we out rebounded them, and I felt really good that our team has established themselves as a team that doesn't need AD to play well on the offensive end to make plays and ultimately get enough for themselves. So I was super excited at that. And also, I want to give AD credit because even though he had a poor shooting night for his standards, he made all the right defensive plays, and he rebounded the ball like a madman. I think he walked out of there with like 16 boards, 3 blocks. Um, so that was something that stood out, even though the shooting wasn't necessarily there. And through 3 quarters, you could say he was a lesser version of what you wanted to see. But he got it going once we found a lob to him. I think it was either with D'Angelo or Dennis Schroeder. Somebody found him on a lob, and once that happened, he started really finding it. Dante DiVincenzo, poor Dante, couldn't seem to figure out that you cannot lay the ball up around Anthony Davis. You can't shoot around him or nothing. You might as well just pass out of that if he's in front of you. I've been watching him do this to everybody for as long as he's been here. Teams just continue to not understand that laying the ball up over him is basically giving the ball to the Lakers. That's just what it is. 9 out of 10 times, maybe even better ratio than that. It's not going to look good for you. So we saw that happen to them a lot tonight, and like the Pantheon great defender that he is, he was erasing stuff. And most importantly, putting us in a position to kind of, as I said before we make the trade, kind of make up for our mistakes. You know, we had some things go down there defensively, leaving shots to a guy like Jordan Poole and stuff like that, Wiggins. We just did not put ourselves in the greatest position down the stretch to close the game, if not for Anthony Davis's defensive plays. Dennis Schroeder missed some key free throws down the stretch of the game. Just certain stuff like that. You want Dennis Schroeder to be aggressive, but you also want him to know when to pull it back, reel it in, and remember, where he stands in regards to helping us win. We don't need you to do too much. But I thought he did a lot, enough, and then a little too much on the end. But we were able to just close out and get the victory. So I was, just really wondering how Coach wants to do the rotations now, because obviously we have to talk about Malik Beasley. He did not have a good start to this Laker tenure today. 2 of 8, 0 of 6 from behind the arc. And it's just one of those things. The shooters are going to shoot, and either they're going to make them or they're not. This is a situation where it's his very first game in a very new team. So there's no home gym to be comfortable in or road gym to be comfortable in. He's just in a brand new situation, and it happened to be a road game in Oakland, or Golden State rather. So I feel like this was a night where maybe we left him out there a little too long to kind of do what it is he does. But at the same time, you don't want to disrespect a guy because you know what he's capable of. And it's not even about him missing shots. It's more so about how many other shooting guards we got and what all they do. It's one of those situations where, unfortunately for Malik, he's just in a logjam on this particular roster. And while we need what he does, if he happens to be cold, it's going to reflect in him sitting down because of the fact that those other guys, like, you can't sit Austin Reeves when he's, you know what I mean? While this guy's going 0 for 6, you got Austin sitting, you got Lonnie sitting. It just doesn't work. We have too many guards. And then you could understand that you can also play people like D'Angelo Russell and Dennis Schroeder at the 2 and that kind of thing. And Thomas Troy Brown at the 2 as well. Max Christie still sitting back there. God knows when he's going to see the floor again. So these are the type of things where it's like a guy like Malik Beasley, even though he's making more money than the shooting guards on our team, that has nothing to do with the Lakers and what they need of him. So for me, it's like he's a specialty guy. And, the money's going to make it so that he should be more comfortable sitting down more so than maybe he would otherwise like to. Because I'm telling you, based on what we need and what our other guards do, we don't need elite shooting from him as much as we need intangibles and good defense from others while D'Angelo's on the floor, while Bron's on the floor. You know what I'm saying? Those guys can hit threes. We're not deficient. So if we're going to have deficient three-point lineups, then he definitely needs to be a part of those. So I just feel like he's a tricky piece. I think we need it. Obviously, we're happy to have him. That ain't even a question. As bad as three-point shooting team we are, we're happy to have him. But I think he was the one piece who was like, okay, you have to bring that piece in so that you can get Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? So that you can get the value in, because his piece was so expensive and that kind of thing. So for what we are, like I said, we definitely need him. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, because he's a certain cachet player, you may think you need to use him more. But the reality is, the situations he was in where he was able to do all that, he didn't have a logjam of shooting guards. So, if he had a game like this, they were leaning on him. We don't have to. In fact, we're worse for doing it. So I think that, He's a young player. You don't want to mess with his confidence. You don't want to have him taking steps back just because he came to your team. You obviously need what he does. But on a night like tonight, it almost cost you the game to roll with him for too long. You know what I mean? It almost will catch you the game when you consider Austin Reeves and how well he was playing on both sides of the floor. I think he walked in there with 8 points. You consider Lonnie Walker, in the minutes that he didn't really receive, he didn't get a lot of minutes, but he looked pretty good for as long as he was out there. So it's like if Malik don't have it, or if any of those guards don't have it, if Lonnie don't have it, it's going to be sit-down time because it's just going to be too difficult for coach to keep up with everything else and then be leaving guys out there in the shooting guard position that aren't playing well. So that's kind of how I see that, man. It's going to be a different shooting guard every night. We still may not have much continuity with that position, even though we've gotten upgrades there. So, I'll tell you the truth, though. I think seeing Dennis Schroeder and D'Angelo Russell, the way that they played off one another, I really feel confident that that's probably our best two guards to put down there, I think, right now. It's probably our best offensive guard tandem. But I say that with hesitancy because I respect so much of what Austin Reeves can bring to the table. But I know you can put him at the 3. He's probably more slotted as a 3 on this team anyway. Troy Brown is a pretty good player, but we got to be patient with his stats because you'll look at him and you have big numbers, but the stats won't really show up. But it's not about that. It's about the length that he provides. It's about the threat of the three-point shot. It's about his rebounding prowess. And so when you look at tonight, you say, man, his stats didn't really give you nothing, but the eyesight and the eye test, ultimately, you knew he helped. And like I said, he led the team in offensive rebounding. So that's why I support him still being a part of the starting lineup. I don't really care that he's not the most talented player of the starters or the players that we have in option. It's more about him being it's about his size and his body type and how you can match that up against most 3s and 2s and switch off to 4s as well. He's a bit quicker than a Rui Hachimura and that kind of thing. So that's something I'm looking at. And also Vanderbilt, it's not going to be too long before he's not starting himself. I like the fact that he's coming off the bench because he gives us a boost of energy that Russell Westbrook also gave us. So it keeps that same kind of rhythm about our team. As well as the fact that him and AD in the starting lineup could be amazing. But once they go sitting down, you're going to have a significant drop-off with your next unit. So I kind of like Vando and Winion together in the backcourt coming off the bench, even though I'm very aware that Vanderbilt is definitely somebody that I trust on the defensive end to do more than Rui at this point. So I don't know. It's gonna be a lot of experimenting, a lot of soul searching, I think, over the next 7 games or so to try to figure out how best to use this roster. Because after a first glance at it, it's going to be hard to figure out who to play and when, especially with that shooting guard position. And so I'm happy. It's a wonderful problem to have. It's definitely the type of problem that you pray to have, And now that we're in this space, and I've looked at this team, I don't know if we need a guy like Terrence Ross. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't. If Malik Beasley's having a hard time staying on the floor, Terrence Ross is going to probably not be in his best place here. And I know he can help us defensively in some ways too, so I don't want to poo-poo what he can do on the other end. But I think it's kind of tough to see another guy who's going to be coming in 3-point shooting, knowing that we have Beasley and guys like that who are just going to need to be called upon to do that. We don't need to bring in another shooter if we're going to have to have trouble finding him on some minutes down there. So I'm looking at that. And then just another thing tonight, like the pecking order. Dennis Schroeder was very, very aggressive. And I love that about him. He took it upon himself to be aggressive. And if it's working, it's working. But I think we're going to explore how that goes going forward. If he continues to shine, I have no problem with him stepping forward and doing things than the way that he's been doing it. I think on paper, you probably want that to be D'Angelo Russell going forward. But I know that D'Angelo doesn't always take it upon himself to be aggressive. At least old D'Lo was like that. Most games he was sharp, but there would be those one games where he'd be 1 for 6, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and he'd just be lost in the sauce. That was 8 years ago. He was a rookie, but I'm just saying that's who I knew him to be. So if he's ever has any moments like that, we know that Dennis Schroeder doesn't ever have moments like that. So I like the aggressiveness, you know what I mean? But I think that sometimes DS takes it upon himself a little more than he needs to with his confidence, and I think it may take away from what other guys should be doing. And so we just gotta play that by ear. But tonight was good. Tonight was really good. Um, and I thought D'Lo played well off of it. You know, he was patient. He didn't say, give me the ball. You know, none of that. He was just saying, you know, let me play off my guys, keep spacing, and just be in position to shoot when I need to and attack when I can. And I just really like how D'Lo was methodical tonight. It's the same way I said about his Minnesota tenure. He's just methodical. While all this other stuff was going on in the Minnesota team, he knew what he could do, and he stayed within his wheelhouse, and he just worked on what it is that he did. And so I think we should empower him. I think we should trust him. He's obviously somebody you can trust down the stretch of basketball games, ice in his veins and all that. And I just haven't forgotten all that he can provide. Mid-range layups, dribble packages, things of that nature. He's a talented young player. And I think he's just gotten lost in Minnesota and with that bad reputation that came with that situation. So that's long gone. He's on our uniform again, and I think this is where he needs to be. And the more he was out there running around, the more comfortable I felt with him down there. It was almost like he had never left. It was like, oh yeah, this is D'Lo. Yeah, it's D'Lo. It's a little stronger version, a little older version, but this is the same kid, and he was always good. So for me, I'm just growing more and more pleased about all of the trades that we made, even more so now than I did when we pulled the trigger. Now that I've seen it, it looks even better than that. So I tell you, man, Jared Vanderbilt, I told you guys this was one of my favorite players before I even knew we had a chance to get him. So to have him on my team running around, pulling down boards and dunking the ball and diving to the rim and all kinds of different stuff that he does, I'm overly thrilled. I'm over the moon, man. I'm absolutely over the moon. This type of player I like. Dennis Rodman type guy who's going to go for everything he needs to. Draymond Green type, going to just be everywhere. You know, a Swiss Army knife with hyperactive energy. You know, he almost reminds me of a Ben Wallace. You know, even though Ben Wallace had that imposing muscle figure and all of that, at the end of the day, Jared Vanderbilt and Ben Wallace kind of play like one another to me in a way. Even though Ben was a little more stuck to the ground, he didn't move as much. But when it came down to just pushing people around and ultimately being where you need to be to rebound the ball and block shots and all that, it's kind of some of the same vibes to me. You know, yeah. And I just love the spin moves, man. He really showed us that he has some dribble packages, some spin moves that he can get to the rim and use. And I see where people say they see the Pascal Siakam, because that's exactly what that was, and spin move stuff. So yeah, man, I'm happy about that. The mid-range ability is there. I know the three-point ability is growing. So, you know, as I said as well, I think he's going to have more assists on this team than he probably had in both Minnesota and Utah, just because of how this team is constructed. It's going to be incumbent upon him to look for guys, and I think he's been shown that he's very capable of making good plays for other people. So he had about 4 assists tonight. I think he had like 10 points, 8 rebounds, and a steal. And I know there's more where that came from. So to say I'm happy with Vanderbilt is just, it's an understatement, man. I'm just hopeful that the Lakers don't do anything to let him go for any reason. Just make sure you pay him, whatever you got to do. Keep a player like that in rotation or whatever you're building, because believe you me, every team needs this guy, Vanderbilt. Everybody needs a Winion and everybody needs a Vanderbilt, and we got them both. So as far as I can tell, that should be our bench front court, with Bamba, of course, starting in my mind. And the thing about it is, Rui Hachimura can switch back and forth between the 3 and the 4. And Anthony Davis is probably going to need as much rest to heal that bone spur as possible. So I think we're going to have plenty of time for those guys to play while Anthony's sitting down. And that's another thing. So the way that this roster is constructed, in my humble opinion, we can actually scale back on Bron and AD's minutes, not necessarily for the betterment of their health, but for the betterment of the fullness of the roster. Because it's going to be times where you're really genuinely going to want Vanderbilt on the floor, and you're probably not going to be able to put him on the floor because Bron or AD's on it. Like, that's genuinely a thing that's going to happen. It's going to get weird in that way, too. And we saw a little bit of that tonight, to be honest with you. It was a situation down the stretch of the game where we had two offensive rebounds go to the Golden State Warriors at like maybe the 4 minute mark of the fourth quarter. And I realized that that's Vanderbilt. We need him down there. Instead we had Rui Hachimura, AD, and a few other guys. And it was just offensive rebound after offensive rebound. I'm like, yo, that ain't going to happen if you put two on the floor, man. That ain't going to happen. And so these are the type of things that we're going to have to, figure out. Obviously, it's only like 27 games left before it's over. So we got to keep on winning the way we did tonight. But, the roster is going to be tricky, man. We've been learning a different roster all season long. So it's almost like a new season, except for it's not, because you still got to work against that same record. So I think the team hit it out the park. Obviously, getting the win. Didn't even expect to get the win given the circumstances, but Golden State did not shoot the ball well, and they didn't handle all that we threw at them very well. You got to take your possession seriously when you're coming up against a team that's going to do enough to help itself on both sides of the floor. Usually, you go up against the Lakers, they're hurting themselves. You got players throwing the ball off the side of the backboard, bumping the ball off their foot, doing all kinds of weird stuff with the clock. They ain't got no business doing, rushing at the rim when the clock says otherwise. Just stuff that you would never see if your basketball team was constructed like this all season. So as we look at this team moving in this direction, we understand that this is exactly where we want to go. At this point, we see pieces that we want to see come back next year. We don't even really need to make too many trades anymore. Just want to re-sign the people we got and keep it pushing and grow this continuity with this young core. Because what I see is the right stuff up and down the roster. And I don't think Malik Beasley's going to shoot this bad most nights. I really don't. In fact, I think we're going to see some nights where he goes 6 for 6. Hopefully those games come when we need him the most. But as far as this particular game, the only thing I would suggest is that they make sure that he's 100%. I just got a feeling he's not. I got a feeling Malik Beasley is probably working through some injuries or working through some knickknacks that's affecting his shot. So I could be wrong, but I think that. So, yeah. What else? Austin Reeves played well. Troy Brown went up rebounding. Trying to run my mind through everything that I missed. Dennis Schroeder played well. Hachimura. That's really what it was, man. Anthony Davis just did not shoot the ball very well throughout the first 3 quarters, as I said. It really was a stretch, to see good play from him early on. It was like, what's going on? He was running into some foul trouble. It seemed like he was a little frustrated out there. There was a lot of stuff going on that just did not work in his favor. But as I said, as soon as Dante DiVincenzo started giving him some easy blocks with those layups, it got him engaged, and he was able to carry himself home with more great rebounding and play like that. So I was pleased, man. I think that this is about as happy as I've been after a basketball game in a long time, honestly. I thought I felt that good after the last game, but we didn't win it, and we didn't have all these reinforcements. But, you just look up and you realize Rui Hachimura, Dennis Schroeder, D'Angelo Russell, Wenyen Gabriel, you know what I mean? These guys were holding you down. Anthony Davis wasn't really doing it like that early on. As I said, Braun wasn't even on the floor. And you were just getting production from all the new guys, man. Vanderbilt just balling out of control. It just really made for a situation where you understand that there are going to be games where those guys don't even have to really do nothing. All this stuff we've been leaning on them all this time. We've been leaning on AD and Braun for 5 years, man. 5 years. Even the Laker team who won a championship, they couldn't actually play together really without AD and Braun. They didn't have the pieces from which to move unless those guys were on the floor. I think this is the very first time Braun and AD on a Laker team where they can just sit down, man. We can beat teams. If Austin Reeves plays his best, Dennis Schroeder, D'Angelo Russell, Vanderbilt, Bamba, if they all play their best, we don't really need anybody to do anything. Like, they really don't. That is a basketball team right there, especially if those guys fully develop. It's a basketball team. You know what I mean? And so AD and Braun just heal. I'll tell Braun, if you got to sit the next game, man, because we're on a. In fact, depending on how things are going, I tell him to sit through the All-Star break. Truthfully. Because the one thing that we really need is to let as many of these players get as much eyesight and footage time as possible so we can start shaping up our roster and shaping up our lineup. If Bron is in there, it kind of takes away from the eyesight that we get to see on those other guys. You don't get as much eyesight on Winion. You don't get as much eyesight on Vanderbilt. You don't get as much, you know what I mean? So I almost feel like this is a necessary thing for LeBron James to sit while these guys are getting acclimated. Um, Play in practice, but sit during these first couple games while he heals, and let's see these guys. Let's take a look at these guys. Beasley can get those 5 3-pointers off. If Bron was on the floor, he's taking those threes. You see? So you don't just get to see these things. So I think healing is important, man. Healing is important. And if we don't get LeBron James into a space where that foot isn't quote unquote unbearable, then all of this stuff that we got going on is just going to be great for next season because he ain't going to do nothing this year. He ain't going to do a damn thing. So that's what it is, man. Let's heal him up. Clearly, we won this game without him. I don't know who we play next. I got to check. I just didn't check the schedule, but it's a situation where no matter who it is, you better win. And so I think we can. I think we've proven that tonight. You know, if guys contribute and do what it is they're supposed to do, we got the pieces. We got the pieces to do damage, man. Obviously, we needed Anthony Davis to win this game tonight, but not to score. He ain't going to shoot this bad most nights. So, yeah, this is an excellent situation, man. I want to also mention that Austin Reeves was really good out there in drawing fouls, doing the things that he also ultimately does that seals defensive plays for our team, you know. And that's something we were missing. We were talking about the basketball IQ of our team and how we were struggling with that while he was gone. It's because we weren't getting these possessions that often take place when someone hits him in the face and the foul goes our way, or someone knocks him to the floor and the foul goes our way. He just sells his fouls very well, and he puts himself in a position to be successful. So that's what we need, man. We need guys who are going to be crafty, intelligent, and are ultimately going to put us in a position to balance out what's coming against us with these, you know, all these different situations that could call against us, calls that are not coming our way, like AD had repeatedly tonight. Constant contact that came AD's way, only for them to give a Jordan Poole an easy layup on a synchronized layup where nobody even touched him. He'll bounce off of Troy Brown's chest and then get a layup and then call a foul on Troy Brown. It's the most annoying thing in the world. Y'all do understand that's exactly what it is, right? For the referees and the officials, you're literally letting a man jump into a person's chest as if he's bouncing off of a wall and then proceed to lay the ball up. That should be an offensive foul because he's initiating the entire contact. And if you study the play that I'm talking about, somewhere in I think it was the fourth quarter, Jordan Poole off of Troy Brown and one. That was all Jordan Poole creating that contact. All Jordan Poole. So how in the heck is that a foul on him? On Troy Brown, rather. So I'm just sitting here with the mindset that the NBA needs to do something about that. It's an eyesore, and it really does leave for a bit of ridiculousness when you consider the play that happened directly before that was Anthony Davis, one of the best players in all of basketball, getting clobbered and not hearing a whistle at all. It's just super deflating for them to come back down and call a touch foul. So, yeah, that's what I want to say, man. All in all, I just saw stability out there, man. I think of specific possessions, you know, where D'Angelo Russell may have messed up his dribble, but then was able to recapture that dribble and get a shot off. Or plays where you saw the defense have to play a little too tight on D'Angelo Russell, so it allowed for Dennis Schroeder to just slide to the rim and get a layup off. Little stuff like that you know is just defensive respect that you just didn't get when you have Dennis Schroeder on the floor and Russell Westbrook on the floor. You don't have that type of defensive spacing where the defense is playing off of one of your guys packing the paint because he can't shoot. It ain't none of that going on. In fact, you got to get all the way out there to our guys, even if they cold. Even if Beasley's 0 for 6, you better get out there. Even if D'Angelo Russell ain't shooting too much, you better get out there. And that is what we now have. And when LeBron James is on the floor, he's going to love playing with guys like that. He ain't had that type of spacing since he played with Kevin Love, man. Since he played with Kevin Love. And I could argue D'Lo is just as talented of a shooter. Specifically. And so for me, it's like, yo, I'm so happy we made these trades. I'm glad we got our kid back, D'Lo. We drafted him. He should have never been gone. And we basically let somebody else develop him, more or less. I mean, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. We let the field develop in him, and we brought him right back, and hopefully for something special, man. Because I think this team, with the pieces that we now have, coupled with the superstar talent that we have, that's proven to have won a championship, and then half the West being new teams just like us, I feel confident. I feel confident that everybody has an adjustment to make. Everybody's trying to reinvent themselves last minute, with the exception of a few teams that didn't do enough, who probably should have did more, like Memphis and Denver. In Sacramento, they didn't do nothing. They should have did something. So it is what it is, man. I'm happy. Happy Laker fan. Good win on the road at the champ's house. No Steph Curry. You're going to hear me complaining. It's one of those things where I think they took us seriously, but I tell you the truth, man, I just don't like their roster right now. I don't like the champs roster right now. It would be a lot better for them if obviously GP2 was healthy. We know about that situation we talked about in the pregame video. And they decided to keep the trade, so that's been the update. Wiseman is officially a Piston. GP2 will be a Warrior. It was too much trouble for the Warriors to rescind that trade. It was just too much trouble. They were going to have trouble with the Hawks and with the Detroit Pistons. It just wasn't necessary just for them to get back a player that they truly do love. You know what I mean? Like, they love GP2. That's the NBA champion for them. Now, granted, you don't want to give away Wiseman for nothing, but you weren't giving away Wiseman because you gave up on him. You were giving up on him because you need to secure the finances there. So, and just even though this is not about that, I think I'm a little higher on Wiseman to Detroit when I think about just how much size is in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, it's not ideal because they're not like Bol and Carter to where they do different things. You kind of have Duran and all those guys, Stewart. They all got the same size. But at the end of the day, when you have as much size as the Eastern Conference has with some of the Cleveland and all them guys, it makes sense for them to want a Wiseman. So that is done. I just wanted to throw that in there since he's an ex-Warrior, also a champion. Hopefully he does well. But anyway, yeah, man, that's what it is, man. It ain't gonna be dancing tonight on their floor in regards to beating us. I like the fact that we wore our white uniforms, the Lakers throwbacks from MPLS, but with minus the MPLS that says Lakers. It was a nice uniform, nice clean game. New guys in the uniform playing well, and just making us proud, man. Making us proud, making us relieved from having a small ball down there and a bunch of stupid basketball. It didn't make no damn sense. And this is just a better team, man. I'd say it's twice as good, to be honest. This team could be twice as good as the team we just had. Truthfully. You just love the activity of a Vanderbilt, and you love the poise of a D'Angelo Russell. You love how DS was still aggressive even though we got new guys. How he's seems to be taking his minutes seriously as it pertains to guys going to be willing to take his minutes from him if he doesn't. So I just like the competition out there. And I think guys had fun, man. I think AD's energy is going to change. I think that little exchange with Draymond Green probably lightened him up. He kind of needed that, man. Honestly, just something to just get him out of whatever zone he was in. And I just think it's better for AD. I know Bron ain't mad at him, even though the media is going to probably make it sound like AD was a hater. I know for a fact, just like AD said, Bron knows it wasn't about him. That ain't even AD's style, man. If he was going to hate on Bron, he would have never came here in the first place, or he'd have picked one of them other 3 years leading up to this to hate on him, not the night of his big moment. And I tell you, this is just my brain, so think nothing of it if you don't want to. But I just look at situations where, for all I know, that's just one more situation that was trying to come against LeBron James. Let me feed something to AD that's going to piss him off to ruin LeBron James's big day. Like, it's kind of stuff that I wonder if somebody's brewing on the sideline just out of sheer whatever the heck. You know what I mean? People got their own interests. When you got billion-dollar people, who knows what people's interests are and why they would want to do certain things. But when I see Anthony Davis upset on Bron's day and it appears as if he's hating, I just wonder if someone did something in Anthony Davis' light on that day so that this would be the setting. So if you know me, I think like that, and I wonder if stuff like that is happening. It's just speculation. I don't know nothing. So that's what I say, man. Guard your energy, everybody, especially the new Lakers, man. Guard your energy. We welcome you here, but it's going to be tough because we're going to pick apart everything. We're Lakers. We used to winning, and a guy goes for 0 for 6 or something like that, and it's going to be a lot of people talking. But at the end of the day, I know Malik Beasley's going to bounce back. I don't have any doubt. What I do doubt is how many minutes will be available for him to do so. But as far as whether or not he can hit shots or be excellent, he's been who he's been his whole career. He's a three-point shooter and one of the best ones out there. So you give him enough three-point shots, he gonna hit enough of them. It just wasn't a good night. So he has to be managed in that way, and that's it, man. But we can't have no 0 for 6s. We have to get him used to what we call three-point discipline. We're going to get all the new Lakers caught up on what we talk about here, and that is we don't shoot more than enough threes. If we aren't hitting them, we move on. There's too many different ways to attack, and we are used to not being able to shoot. So if we are having a cold night, we move away. You see how many threes we attempted tonight? Only 25. And that's because we've been doing that all year long. We know better. We suck shooting the ball in our minds based on who we've been up until this point. So we want to keep some of those old, good, careful three-point habits because they lead us to better possessions overall. They lead us to being a better team, no matter who's going to be in purple and gold. Three-point discipline is a trait that we should always have in the back of our minds. You want to shoot enough of them, but you don't want to shoot too many. Or you end up like Golden State tonight. So that's what I got to say, man. That is what it is. I don't know who to give the game ball to. Honestly, I don't. If I'm being real, I think I want to give the game ball to Rob Pelinka. That's exactly what I want to give the game ball to, Rob Pelinka. Because at the end of the day, you saw his acquisitions pay dividends out the gate. They beat the champs out the gate. And the players on the team that he kept, I think they were the right players to keep. They look great out there as well, next to the pieces that they dreamt up to put together. And we really didn't have any understanding of what guys were going to do, continuity. And if you look at all the stats, it wasn't really any real standout Laker tonight. You know, you might say Anthony Davis if you look at the stats, but if you look at his shooting numbers, it wasn't there. You may say Dennis Schroeder, right, the way that he played tonight. But I thought he made a couple mistakes, including those 2 missed free throws down the stretch that almost cost us. You might want to say Vanderbilt, the way he played, but I don't know that he played better than some of those other guys that we mentioned already. Plus, his plus-minus wasn't as good as you would want it to be. So these type of things, it's like everybody played well. Everybody contributed to this win. Everybody did what they needed to do to some degree. Even Malik Beasley had some good defensive moments. Even Malik Beasley had a mid-range jumper that fell for him and probably assist or something, a couple of rebounds. So there are ways to contribute to playing meaningful basketball even when you're cold. And I think our guys ultimately were kind of cold from behind the arc, but rebounded the ball, defended well enough, played physical enough, took punishment enough, and left the champs a loser on this evening on their home floor. So I'm a happy Lakers fan, you guys. Rob Pelinka, salute. Thank you guys for watching BDF 44.